What's good, everybody?
What it do?
We're back with another one of these ones.
Gang gang.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh yeah, so today we are doing another video of a working man.
Yes, a working man. If you didn't know,
Now you
Coach
know.
Diesel.
Right. Right. So, what is this movie about? It stars Jason Statham. Okay.
All right, let's wrap it up. He's a working man. All right.
You know.
Come on.
So
Yeah,
oh yeah, I didn't print it.
it's all good.
But yes, so directed by David Ayer, who did do the Beekeeper. Um,
And Suicide Squad. Not the Suicide Squad, which was James Gunn, not to be mistaken.
that part. So basically, he's a construction worker who
Has a special set of skills. If you know what I mean.
it's not taken.
Is it?
No. But yeah. Basically, now I can't say it. So his boss, because I think he's like an assistant manager type or a lead.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, his top boss, his daughter gets. Yeah,
Kidnapped.
I was gonna say taken,
Oh,
but yeah, kidnapped. Into, I don't think we can say what it was
yeah, yeah.
because YouTube. But
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah. But yeah. So basically, he's got to rescue her. That's pretty much it. Um, let's so um, what should we talk about? So basically, yeah. What did you think of the film?
You know, well, first it was Jason Statham doing action stuff.
I am a Jason Statham fan, so
Yeah,
I am seeing Jason Statham movies,
yeah,
which
yeah.
you should too.
So we kind of differ a little bit in the Jason Statham fandom.
There we go.
This, for me, I
There we go.
this is I actually um, prefer, and I feel like we talked about this before, when he's more of like a supporting role in a supporting,
No.
or I'm saying this is for me,
Yeah.
because I feel like
Yeah, he likes more the Fast and the Furious.
yeah, I feel like he's better when he's playing off of other characters because he's very much he has this like straight personality like you're not gonna get huh.
We're rambling again.
I'm getting into my thoughts.
Okay. Okay.
I'm getting there.
Okay.
And because this is a common thing that I feel like is in with a lot of these movies where the action is good. Like I'm gonna say for this movie, the action is good. I think you get some good combat scenes, some good shootout scenes.
You go into a Jason Statham film wanting one thing and one
Yeah.
thing only. No one complains when there's like thousands of John Wicks.
Yeah.
But the second Jason Statham comes up with something that's very similar than what he did, even though it's a different movie,
Yeah.
Jason Statham gets trashed on. But Keanu does the same thing. Liam Neeson does the same thing.
Yeah.
There's so much,
No.
other people that do the same exact thing.
I will
So
say this.
it's a type of film.
It
It's
is. It is.
and people like that type of film.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm not hating on you for liking that type of film, but I'm also gonna say, to your point with Liam Neeson, there are people that complain that he's kind of been making the same sort of movies for years. He was
I feel
kind
like
of
that's more of a typecast though.
and we did talk about that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if that's him because I mean he's literally been in some of the most acclaimed movies. Like he was in Schindler's List. Like he was the lead character in that. And that's considered one of the greatest movies of all time. And he's done other work where he's been able to stretch himself as far as his performances. But going back to Statham, it's kind of like he's been in some really good movies. I'm just saying for me and what I prefer, I feel like I like when he's kind of more of in like a he's playing opposite somebody else who has like a bit more of a dynamic personality, so you can kind of get some more of a I guess more interesting like
So how's
character
it job?
dynamics. Yeah, something like that. Which
But
I know it doesn't necessarily have to be that specifically, but
yeah,
I feel like
because I feel like you get in to speak on Hobbs and Shaw, you're
yeah,
going off of Rock, who
yeah,
is the same in every single film.
that's true. I also agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just felt like that was just a fun movie, but and I must and that definitely has some flaws in it. But if I'm just thinking about Working Man and just the last few Statham movies I've seen, I feel like he's definitely on kind of like a this path of yeah these movies are kind of feeling very similar. There are differences, but and even when you mentioned um, John Wick, I do feel like this kind of copied certain story beats from Wick as well. But I feel like John Wick overall is probably stronger just because of the world that they created, and it's like this coming after it. Now it's like in my mind now it's like okay now I'm comparing it to John Wick, or now I'm comparing it to Taken because obviously someone important to him was kidnapped, and then they have this whole crime syndicate, and it's like so it's these are natural comparisons that people are gonna make. I feel like it's not fair to the to like to look at the audience and say like, oh, you've got to see it from this point of view. Where it's like, but you can kind of clearly see how they're copying other things.
I get it, but
Yeah,
it's like you know what you're getting yourself into when you've seen these films.
yeah,
So, I mean, you got it. Well, let's get back on track.
yeah, yeah,
So, what I liked about this film was Jason Statham just being Jason Statham. If we're comparing it, let's compare it to instead of comparing it to Liam Neeson or Keanu Reeves.
yeah,
Let's since it's the same director, same actor, um, compare it to Beekeeper. I thought Beekeeper was okay, but it was just too what's the word? Cringy? Not cringy. Just very I don't know.
corny,
Huh?
corny.
Yeah, that's the word. Corny. Yeah, very corny. Of course, they had to use like B puns all the time, and I thought this was just straight shot. Now, do I like every one of Jason Statham's films? No. I feel like you gotta do what you're good at.
Mm-hmm.
Does that mean you can't do something different? No. But if something doesn't work or it's just not what you're good at, I don't think there's anything wrong with just doing what you're good at. So I will get to some constructive criticisms. So, but for I just like this better just because it was more kind of I just think it was better. I just think it wasn't kind of just I don't know. I felt like AI just kind of made Beekeeper and was just like, here we go. Or it's like, I don't know. It's just very simple. But this was kind of a little more straight.
Yeah.
What was it the perfect action film? No. I feel like we need to go back to where 90s. And every time I think of a 90s action film, I think of Face Off.
Yeah.
I think I think in the '90s they were. Now, yeah, a lot of those kind of movies they don't hold up well now today,
Hmm.
but we are kind of getting into the time where they're just like, all right, this is what we got. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's kind of like you know the same as the last one. Like they have a certain template of how they do things in every action film,
Yeah.
and they say, "Here's a different actor, go for it."
Mm.
When there's nothing really distinctive about any of these action films.
Yeah.
At least Novocaine, which we just reviewed, go check it out.
Hmm.
That was a little different,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, that was pretty original as far as the plot. Yeah.
Um, Now what I like most about Jason Statham was his earlier stuff, which was The One with Jet Li,
Hmm.
and then also Transporter.
Yeah.
It was very simple. It was very interesting, and he used everything as a weapon. I think that's
Yeah.
what he's good at. You
Yeah.
just got to have the right story, and
Hmm.
it's got to be interesting. It can't be, you got to switch it up every now and then.
Yeah.
You know, um, so yeah, I think he's good in action films. I just feel like the writing needs to be better.
I agree. I agree.
So,
Yeah.
um, but I think he did great in this film. I thought Michael Pena is in this
Yeah.
film. He did great. You got David Harbour who
Yeah.
did great in this film.
Hmm.
I think that about sums up all the main.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then another thing that bugs me too is they give it like a catchy. What is it like? We'll give it like the contractor or the accountant or
Yeah.
the forger or like
Yeah.
they'll name it a catchy like name
Yeah. Real
and
simple.
real simple one word name and that's the movie. So it to quote the great Ryan Reynolds, lazy writing. Lazy writing.
No, for Deadpool.
Hey, he got it. He got it. He got it. But
But
no,
like the Deadpool line.
but no. I should have looked at the camera while I was saying that. But yeah. But I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
There's a kid in here that does great. The action scenes were cool.
Hmm.
All the kills were very interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, how about you? Positives.
Yeah. So I definitely liked the action. I think I mentioned that before. The I think Statham does do a good job with like him being um a father and having his sort of found family, and you can definitely feel the devotion he has to them because it's like they basically they they're all he has in a sense, like, and I kind of see that through line in um, other movies as well, like even with Beekeeper, if we're comparing it to that as well, like he definitely has a sense of loyalty that he maintains through a lot of his characters, um, but also comparing it to Beekeeper, I think something I told you before was that, like, I actually felt like Beekeeper had an interesting uh, plot, or at least like I don't. I felt like the execution is probably what could have been stronger with Beekeeper, but I think the the idea of like, oh, this secret organization of beekeepers, I was like, that could be potentially interesting. Now I don't think the payoff was as what I thought it was going to be or should have been, but I also agree that they did have some kind of corny B puns. But I feel like with Working Man, the positive is that even though I felt like the premise was simple and kind of derivative, I think the execution was probably a little bit stronger than with Beekeeper because it was a more simple story with Working Man, but I felt like they kind of were like, okay, let's get back to kind of the basics, even though they were sort of copying from other tropes. But when it comes to
Action movies.
action,
Yeah.
they do every action
Every
movie
yeah.
is going to play on similar tropes. But
Yeah.
I do think though the writing could be stronger and certain things could be executed a little bit stronger. Um, but it's a Statham action movie, so it's like there's only so much you can really expect. But I don't know what I would like to see going forward because I do think this is his genre, like the you know action movies. That's his thing. So I'm not gonna expect him to be in like
So let me ask you this.
period.
Let me ask you this.
Yeah.
If they were going to do action movies that appealed to your standards, what would like them to do?
Um, I don't know. Like, I don't have like a specific like, oh yeah, it's got to have this. I, I just, I guess I think about certain action movies that I've really liked over the last few years, and I hate to use John Wick as an example because that's where I feel like it kind of pulled from.
Everybody uses John.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but that's the most like, uh, okay, most rel- easiest to remember. So I don't, I can't necessarily picture Statham in a movie like this, but it's a Indian movie that came out, Tollywood, came out a couple years ago called RRR, and it's on Netflix. It has a lot of like over the top action, but I feel like it's very well executed. So I wouldn't picture him being in something like that. Not to say he couldn't, but it's just hard for me to picture him in being something like that. But I think the thing with action is it's all about the execution. Because you could have made this like, take your best action director. If he got the same script, it would look different than whatever we got with this one. Not to say I'm not trying to like speak negative, but it's just I think a lot of things are like you can get a weak script with a great director and they can kind of elevate it, or you can have a great script but a not so great director, and then the movie not turn out as great because the movies are more of the director's medium, and that shows a lot more on the on the action side of things. So it's hard to answer that question specifically, like, oh, what I would want to look like. It's just I think care. I think the big thing is like with any movie having believable characters and making me kind of it it feeling immersive and feeling like I'm in that world, even though I know like, oh yeah, real life wouldn't necessarily be like this, but feeling like I'm immersed into that story. So
So I'll say this. As far as stuff I didn't like about the film,
yeah.
because there are some stuff I didn't like about the film.
Hmm.
With these kind of films, I feel like the action. I mean, not the action. The villains are kind of generic.
Hmm.
I feel like for a great hero, we talked about this yesterday. Like you gotta have a great villain. Think of
Hmm.
Spider Man. Think of Batman, Superman. They all have like great villains. The Joker, Lex Luthor,
Hmm.
Green Goblin.
Hmm.
They kind of play off. So you got to have that good villain that kind of meets that expectation.
Yeah.
That kind of has that chemistry with Jason Statham,
Yeah.
and so I think the fact that it was too similar, like Taken and John Wick, but also I feel like what I noticed too while watching this film is they left a lot of things open where they didn't explain all the way. Where I feel like they did that because they want another sequel, but they don't know if it's gonna, you know, if another sequel is going to get greenlit.
Yeah.
So the problem I have with studios these days is they'll do certain things to leave stuff open because they want to do a sequel, but then if it doesn't get greenlit for a sequel, it's just kind of like this whole movie, this
Mm-hmm.
first movie with a lot of holes in it
Yeah.
that never get kind of answered. But then another thing is like you got to kind of make the movie stand on its own.
Yeah.
And then if it does get greenlit for a sequel,
Mm-hmm.
okay, you can do a sequel. But here's the thing: you can't just only make a sequel just because the money it makes money. Kind of comparing it to Joker, there are
Mm-hmm.
certain movies where it's kind of like just the sequel is just a cash grab.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like they're just printing out money because they know people are going to pay for it.
Yeah.
You got to have an interesting story to kind of make it feel complete. And if it just feels kind of cheap and like it doesn't feel like it actually needed the first story. Think of Dune.
Mm.
Dune did well,
Yeah.
and the sequel did just as good as the first one.
Yeah.
And of course, because it was a book,
Mm-hmm.
they got stuff to come through with. But if you're just kind of like, oh yeah, this film did gangbusters at the box office, and corporate's kind of telling, so can you do another movie? Now it feels kind of forced,
Yeah.
and it doesn't feel natural. It doesn't feel like, you know. So I think that kind of bothered me. I feel like there's a lot of stuff they could have done with David Harbour's character, more backstory with
Yeah.
what happened with John, uh, um, Jason Statham's character,
Yeah.
and then the way they kind of ended it was like real open ended.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that's kind of like my little problem with that.
Yeah.
I feel like yes, I do agree that the movies need to be better as far as action films.
Mm-hmm.
So if they were kind of better, if maybe the trailer looked good, or you felt like it looked like a promising film, would you go see it if Jason Statham was part of it?
Yeah.
If it was just him.
So I think it is. It's definitely a premise thing. I think like it's a combination of the actors, the premise, and who's directing it.
And the story.
Well, that's what I mean by the premise, like the story.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's what I basically meant.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do like your point about the villain. Like certain heroes, they need that villain to kind of elevate the story, to elevate the struggle, because
Yes.
it's kind of like when you put Jason Statham in there, like David Harbour, really good actor, but he's only in there for a couple scenes.
That's what I'm saying. If you want to use a sequel, like bring back, David Harbour,
Yeah,
and I feel like you could have put him in more stuff.
yeah,
You could have had more backstory to what happened with his wife and everything like that.
hmm
And I think the kid did good. I think the kid, for her being a little girl, I think
Yeah.
she did great because not all kids do great at acting.
Yeah.
But I think she did great. So yeah. But yeah, I think it just needs to. I feel like you have so many action stars. You got The Rock. You got
yeah,
Keanu Reeves. You got
Mhm.
all Liam Neeson. You got all these action stars, but they always play the hero, and then you got a generic villain.
yeah. I think
I think you can put two and two. Like
yeah,
I would love to see Keanu Reeves. I hate like not versus, but like just going, you know,
yeah.
because you talked about Hobbs and Shaw too.
Mhm. That,
Either
Idris-
Hobbs and Shaw or Face Off, where you got two big, whether it's Keanu Reeves and Jason Statham or whatever the case may be, they could either be, standing aside, bashing version,
Yeah.
versing each other,
Yeah.
or like just side by side like a buddy cop.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the buddy cop is kind of being overused as well.
It can. It has been.
Yeah, because you got Lethal Weapon, you got Hobbs and Shaw, you got Bad Boys.
Yeah.
I think the that stick is being overused as well.
And it is used in much of more of a comedic
Yeah,
sort of way. And
yeah.
I think with Statham, he isn't like the
I
Fast
like
and
his
Furious
more
world.
serious stuff.
I think that's where I feel like we have a different taste as far as like, because I think he's probably better in the more serious stuff, but I feel like I'm more entertained in like the more action comedy type stuff.
Yeah.
Even though I feel like if I'm looking at it from an objective standpoint, I feel like that's probably more of his lane, the more serious stuff, because he does have that more serious
Because
personality.
when it does come off as he's trying to do comedy, it comes off as cheesy a lot of times.
Yeah.
So you got to have that right person,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't always have that Rock, because Rock is also good in those kind of
Mm-hmm.
roles.
Yeah.
So that's why kind of Hobbs and Shaw, it kind of worked because they had that kind of going off, and then of course you had it from the Fast and Furious.
Yeah.
So you already had that setup.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like you don't need a sequel. You don't need. I feel like you just need different action movies that are different in their own kind of way.
Yeah.
With different great actors, I feel like you have a whole Hollywood is full of just good action stars.
It is. I think to that point though, not to try not to ramble too much on it, but I think what happens with a lot of action stars is like if you were to get somebody opposite Jason Statham and they're up against each other, well then it's like one of them's gonna have to lose. And if you look at somebody like The Rock, he doesn't like to lose.
I mean that's part of the Rock's problem.
That's I know that's this
even in WWE.
Yeah. So I think a lot of actors, especially the superstars, the action stars, some of them do have an ego. I mean,
you're already it's wrestling. You know, of course, The Rock is already like that's his character. Mm-hmm. So, but you also got to have somebody who has a bit of range.
Yeah.
Because you can't have somebody who just plays the same character in every single film.
Yeah, and I don't want to just pick on The Rock, but I think other there are other action stars.
But I think like if you go back to the '90s, you had Bruce Willis, you had Sylvester Stallone, you had all these people who have a gallery of just different kind of action movies.
Yeah.
Clint Eastwood or
Schwarzenegger.
You got so many people that it's like
But a lot of them but I mean if you even look at Schwarzenegger and Stallone, they had their feud and they didn't really get into a movie together until like the 2000s.
Yeah.
With the Expendables. Was that the first one? But they definitely I feel like actors in every era, especially action stars, they have these egos and want to be better than their rivals. So it's like it's hard getting a lot of them to go up against each other in a movie, especially if one's gonna be the hero, one's gonna be the villain, and then somebody's gonna have to lose unless you do. They're like it goes from like enemies to comrades or something. So it's definitely it's an interesting discussion.
It's a slippery slope.
But I think there are certain action stars that they could, or even not even action stars. I think there are interesting actors that you can put in a Jason Statham movie as a villain. They don't necessarily have to be like a full-on action star. Like you had, I'm gonna just use, not to ramble, but like Mission Impossible. They've had a lot of great actors as the villains, like the Mission Impossible 3. You had what?
Don't say the name.
Oh.
Yeah, I got to watch. Yeah.
But there's a
which rather unfortunate because the last one's coming up. But
yeah. We'll have to do a marathon or something.
We'll have to, yeah. But yeah.
Hey.
Everybody's probably like, why didn't you see?
So yeah, man. What do you rate this?
3.5 or 4. It's probably.
Yeah.
I already know what yours was.
You already know, but do I got to tell them?
Yes.
2.5.
And the way you said it, he's not a fan. He's a critic.
I'm not a critic, man. I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy. I'm no critic.
It's a critic.
I'm no critic. I'm just a man. I'm just a guy.
Which is what a critic would say.
No, man. I'm not a critic.
But yeah, anywho, enough joking. But yeah, I thought it was good. Could it have been better? Yes. A lot of people do say Beekeeper was the better one. I kind of disagree, but I think, of course, film is subjective. So, but I think, yeah, just they need to get better at making movies, not just with action movies, but movies in general. Because I think a lot of people, are getting very fatigued with how similar all these, or cookie cutter, all these movies have been. You know, everything is a sequel, everything is a franchise, everything, is basic, or from a book, or, a prequel, or trying to build a universe, or whatever the case may be. We need to go back to basics and just try to make just good films. If you can make a sequel, cool, but, but well, that's a whole nother video. But let us know what you think. And yeah.
And also R.I.P. to
Val Kilmer. Yes.
Legend.
He was in Top Gun.
Top Gun. He was in
Top Gun
Maverick. He was in
The
Heat.
Batman.
Batman Forever. Yeah, he was in Heat. He was in Tombstone. A lot of things. He was the voice of Moses in Prince of Egypt.
I did not know that, but I watched that film.
One of the goats. So
Moment of silence.
Yeah. All right.
So yeah, pour one out for Val Kilmer. Prayers to his friends and family. Our condolences go out to him. So yeah, there was a lot of stuff that happened at CinemaCon, so we might need to go over that.
We may need to.
In a separate video. Anything else? So we will keep you updated for whatever else. Follow us on socials. We'll try to get back into the social media game and try to get better. Please, guys, share this video. Like, share, subscribe. Tell everybody.
Share with your dog, your cat, your hamster, your goldfish. Please.
But yeah, we need the views and so if you know any people that would like movies, share our channel and stuff like that. We would greatly appreciate it. So yeah, we just wanted to get our stuff out there to more people. So please,
to the people.
So as always, God bless, and we'll see you in the next one.
Peace.